Most people measure wealth the wrong way. They check their salary, they look at what their friends drive, they scroll Instagram and feel behind. But real wealth doesn't look like anything on the outside, at least not yet. The signs that you're actually getting rich are quieter than that. They're behavioral, they're mathematical, and almost nobody recognizes them while they're happening. Today, I'm going to give you 9 of them. Check how many apply to you, because if more than 5 of these are true, you're further ahead than you think.
Most people obsess over investment returns. They want 10%, 12%, 15% annually. But here's what the data actually shows. Before you hit $100,000 invested, your savings rate matters more than your returns. If you have $20,000 invested and you save $1,000 a month, you're adding 5% to your portfolio every single month just by showing up. No market needed. The quietly rich person isn't hunting for the best stock. They're making their savings rate untouchable. And if that's you, that's sign number 1. Studies show that for every 10% income increase, average spending rises by 14%. Most people don't even notice it happening. New car, nicer apartment, more subscriptions. It feels earned. But if you've gotten a raise in the last 2 years and your monthly expenses stayed roughly the same, you just did something most people are psychologically incapable of. That gap between what you earn and what you spend is the only number that actually builds wealth. Protecting that gap is the strategy.
Here's a question most people can't answer. How much money do you need invested right now to never need a paycheck again? If you know that number, your annual expenses multiplied by 25, you're already ahead of 95% of people. Because most people are working toward a feeling, not a finish line. The quietly rich person has a specific number, a target, a date. Not a vague, someday I'll have enough. An actual number they're closing in on. This one sounds small. It isn't. Getting to $10,000 saved requires overcoming the 2 hardest psychological barriers in personal finance, starting and not stopping when it feels pointless. Most people never make it here, not because they can't, but because they spend their 20s believing $10,000 isn't enough to matter. It is. At 7% returns, $10,000 invested at 25 becomes $149,000 by 65 without adding another dollar. The first 10K isn't small. It's the seed of everything that comes after. There are 2 types of wealthy people, the ones who look wealthy and the ones who are wealthy. The car payment, the designer bag, the vacation posted on Instagram, these are the currency of looking rich. But the quietly rich person drives a paid-off car, lives in a house that's under their means, doesn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. This shift from performing wealth to building it is one of the most underrated signs that you've crossed a psychological threshold most people never reach. This is the milestone nobody talks about, but everyone remembers when it happens. At $175,000 invested at 7%, your portfolio generates roughly $1,000 a month in returns. For most people, that's more than they spend on groceries, utilities, and subscriptions combined. The moment your money starts covering real expenses, even small ones, something psychological shifts permanently. You stop seeing your portfolio as a number and start seeing it as an engine. That engine, once started, never stops. In early 2026, markets dropped hard. Group chats exploded. Everyone was asking whether to sell. The quietly rich person looked at their portfolio, saw red numbers, and felt nothing. Or better, felt excited. Because they understand something most people don't. A market drop isn't a loss. It's a sale. The investors who build real generational wealth aren't smarter. They've just been through enough cycles to know that red is temporary and staying in is the entire strategy. Willpower is a terrible financial strategy. The quietly rich person doesn't decide to save every month. They automated that decision years ago. Direct deposit splits, automatic index fund contributions, scheduled transfers on Payday. When saving requires no decision, it never gets skipped. And when it never gets skipped, it compounds. If your investments move before you can touch your paycheck, that's not discipline. That's something better, a system that makes discipline irrelevant. This last one is the quietest sign of all, and the most powerful. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, payday is an event. You count down to it. You feel relief when it arrives. But as your savings grow, as your emergency fund thickens, as your investments compound, payday becomes just another Tuesday. You don't need it urgently anymore. The gap between your expenses and your income has grown wide enough that money stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a background process running quietly in the back of your life. That feeling, that's what getting rich actually feels like. Not a yacht, not a Lambo, just calm.
So, how many of those 9 signs apply to you right now? If it's only 1 or 2, that's not a failure. That's a checklist. Every single one of those signs is a decision, not a destiny. The quietly rich person wasn't born different. They just started treating these 9 things as non-negotiable, one at a time, month after month, until they stopped feeling like effort and started feeling like identity. The wealth was always being built quietly. You just needed to know what to look for. If this video helped you see where you actually stand, the next one will show you the exact number that makes all 9 of these signs permanent.